Hey everybody, happy Sunday. I hope that wherever you are and whatever you are doing, you are safe, you are well, and you are with people you care about who also care for you. It's been another interesting week here in the US. I don't necessarily want to make every video I do here be political, but oh wow. I just hope that you are all, if you're watching this in the US, that you are all registered to vote and you will take all appropriate steps to ensure that you do have a chance to vote in November's midterms. Because, I went to the No Kings rally last weekend as Queenie Deerheart. And even though I was in a giant animal costume, I got to see how people were really feeling about things. And, 8 million people standing up and going, hey, this isn't cool. It's quite a big movement. So I hope that come the midterm elections, that makes itself feel known. Anyway, on to today's actual topic, which does have a bit of a political angle to it. And it's namely, I want you to talk to me about reactions and interactions that you've had with people if you own an EV or you know someone who owns an EV, when just random Joe or Josephine public comes up and notices that you are driving an EV. Now, I have been driving EVs for, nearly 20 years. So my first EV, in fact, 20 years. It will be 20 years in November since I bought my first EV. And so for me, I've kind of got used to the stares and the weird questions and stuff. And, I owned, my first EV was a City L. There is at least one person who watches this channel who owns one. I'm insanely jealous of their City L, although I might own a Mini L, thinking about it. Mini L was before City L, so they changed the company name and the vehicle name for reasons I won't go into. But they're basically the same vehicle. And it had a canopy, so you sat in it very low to the ground. And when you got out, you lifted up the whole of the front of the canopy, and that basically it hinged at the front like this. And so driving that around Bristol in the UK, where I was at the time, invariably got a lot of attention. I drove it in the countryside a lot as well, because I used to drive it to schools where I would teach. And then, later on I ended up with a plug-in Prius, and I had a G-Wiz for a while, except mine was actually a Riva. It was the first Riva to be imported into the into the UK, to be used for advertising before it became G-Wiz. I obviously also had the Golf City Stroma, which looked like a regular Volkswagen Golf, but it had a weird grille on it, and people would notice the grille, and then they would notice the charge cable, and sometimes they would notice the fact that it didn't make any noise when I was, in heavy traffic, and they'd wind the window down and ask me questions. All of those cars kind of get a lot of attention. And then I had a Twizy, which again got a lot of attention, especially the way I drove it, because I drove it again all the way through the countryside and all around town, and I treated it like a regular car, even though it really wasn't. But then with the Nissan Leaf, obviously with the Leaf, you'd plug in a fast charger and you have people coming up and asking you questions, and it would normally be how long does it take? How much does it cost? Doesn't that take a long time? Isn't that expensive? I've also had people get angry and claim that I'm stealing their money and their electricity, and someone in our chat actually said that as well. When I can't remember who it was, I think it was Joe in the chat brought that up today. And I thought about it and went, actually, yeah, that happened to me once a long time ago in the UK, at a charging station on the M4 of all places. Someone said I was stealing electricity, and that's why the cost of the amenities at the rest stop was so high. That was an interesting one. But I want to know what interactions you've had. With the F-150 Lightning, one of my common ones now is I will use the frunk, because we use the frunk like a trunk, like a boot. And so I'll have the bonnet or the hood up, the frunk up, whichever way you want to call it, and I'll be inside putting things in, and invariably it'll be some older guy comes up to ask me if I need if I have trouble with my truck, and then he'll look inside and there's no engine, and that will throw him for a loop, right? And he'll absolutely just actually watch his brain reboot. He's like, oh, that's not what I thought was going to happen. And his brain reboots, and then he doesn't really know what to say, and then you explain what it is, and then you talk about how you can run your home from the truck in a power cut, and how it, you know, can tow a house, because I've towed a house, tiny house of mine before, and how you can do, you know, a couple 100, 300 miles depending on the weather and everything else. And I've towed a car halfway across America with it. That kind of story generally impresses people, and they go, oh, cool, that's cool. And then you talk to them about the, you know, the acceleration time, and they're always impressed with the acceleration time. But I kind of want to build a picture of what the common reactions are that you get when you're in an EV and you're plugged in and you're charging. I also want to hear from people who have been told they shouldn't be charging, or that they're charging in the wrong place. I know it's quite common. I've heard from people recently who are getting flack from some, and I do want to underscore and say some, a vocal minority of Tesla owners who get really angry when a non-Tesla EV is at their charging station. And it is their charging station as far as they're concerned. It's just people being pillocks. I don't like using the word Karen, because I have a sister called Karen and she's awesome. But pillock is very appropriate, and it's a British term. So all of your Americans can go, oh, pillock, that's a good word. I learned something new today. And all of your British people can go, yeah, she's been in the US for 10 years, but she's still a Brit at heart. There you go, pillock. Or a smeghead, if you want to go, you know, Robert Llewellyn style. So tell me your tales of ennui, of happiness, of surprise, when you've had weird interactions at EV charging stations, or just had weird interactions from family members, colleagues, enemies, frenemies, for turning up in an EV, or using an EV, or having the frunk up and loading it up with stuff, and people are going, wait, that's a normal, but no, and then they stop. So tell me your stories in the down below, and I will be here as usual this time next week. Before I go, thank you to the amazing list of people scrolling by on either side of me right now. And thank you to Charlie the rooster. You probably don't hear that on camera. Whenever I say thank you to Charlie the rooster and then I listen to the audio on the way back, I don't always hear it because we've got really good audio equipment here. Anyway, thanks to the amazing list of people supporting us. They are on either side of me right now. You could join them by going to patreon.com/transportevolved, or joining up on YouTube. You can do that. Either way, you know, it's the devil, you know, for both of those platforms. They both take a massive cut. I think I've told you all, I think Patreon took over 15 grand in fees last year. YouTube is just the same, but they both take care of international taxes, which would be an absolute nightmare for me to do, and actually would cost me more than $15,000 to do. So I'm happy at the end of the day that I don't have to deal with those. Anyway, you can also follow us on social media. We are on Mastodon. We are on Blue Sky, but not very active. I'm sorry, I don't like Blue Sky very much. And we're also, you can find us on other places as well. And you can also join our Discord chat room, and just new, we have a Fluxer chat set up as well. I'll put a link in the down below. If I remember, I keep forgetting, but we'll add it, don't worry. Until next time, thanks for being the positive change that we need to see in the world. Tell the people in your life that are important to you that they are important to you, because you might never know when you can't anymore. And as always, keep evolving.